The story begins with a woman named Millie Calloway, who is living on the razor's edge of survival. She's living out of her car, cleaning herself in gas station bathrooms, and desperate for a second chance. Millie has a criminal record, a secret she's terrified will keep her in poverty forever. But then, she gets a miracle. She is hired as a live-in maid for the Winkesters, an ultra-wealthy family living in a stunning, isolated mansion. To Millie, this isn't just a job. It's a life raft. When she arrives at the house, she meets Nina Winchester. Nina is beautiful, sophisticated, and seemingly perfect, but the cracks show almost immediately. She's erratic. One moment she's kind, and the next, she's accusing Millie of things she didn't do or making a mess just to watch Millie clean it up. The house itself feels like a cage. Millie is assigned a room in the attic, a tiny, cramped space that only locks from the outside. It's unsettling that Millie tells herself it's worth it to be near Andrew Winchester. Andrew is the perfect husband. He's handsome, successful, and incredibly patient with his wife's deteriorating mental state. Millie watches from the shadows as Nina treats Andrew with coldness and hostility. She starts to feel a deep, dangerous sympathy for him. She sees a man trapped in a marriage with a crazy woman, and Andrew begins to look at Millie as his only source of peace. They share stolen moments in the kitchen, quiet conversations that feel like the beginning of a romance. But there's a warning. Enzo, the Italian gardener who barely speaks English, tries to tell Millie to leave. He looks at her with eyes full of pity and warns her that the house is dangerous. Millie ignores him, thinking he's just being strange. She's too focused on her growing feelings for Andrew and her growing hatred for Nina. The tension builds as Nina's behavior becomes more extreme, throwing clothes, screaming at her daughter, and making Millie's life a psychological hell. The midpoint flip. Then, the movie reaches its 90-degree turn, and everything we thought we knew is destroyed. The perspective shifts from Millie to Nina. We find out that Nina Winchester isn't crazy at all. She's a woman living in a state of absolute terror. We see the reality of her marriage. Andrew is not the victim. He is a monster. He's a serial abuser who uses the attic room as a torture chamber for the women he brings into his life. Nina realized that the only way to survive Andrew was to play the part of the unhinged wife so that no one would believe him if he tried to get rid of her. But more importantly, Nina didn't hire Millie by accident. She saw Millie's criminal record, specifically that Millie had been to prison for a violent crime in her past. Nina hired Millie to be her replacement and her executioner. Nina knew that Andrew would eventually target Millie, and she hoped that Millie was strong enough and damaged enough to fight back and kill him, freeing them both. The second half of the movie becomes a high-stakes game of survival. Andrew's mask completely slips. He locks Millie in the attic, and the psychological romance she thought she had turns into a nightmare of physical and mental control. He uses the same tactics on her that he used on Nina for years. But Andrew made one fatal mistake. He underestimated Millie Calloway. The climax is a brutal, claustrophobic showdown within the walls of the mansion. Millie utilizes the survival instinct she learned in prison, and Nina, finally finding her courage, stops being the victim. The two women, who were positioned as enemies by Andrew's manipulation, realize they are on the same side. The gardener, Enzo, turns out to be Nina's only true ally, helping to cover their tracks. The movie ends with a chilling, poetic justice. Andrew is dealt with, but not in a way that sends the women to jail. They used his own perfectionism and his perfect reputation against him. The final scene shows Millie moving on, no longer the girl living in her car, but a woman who has claimed her power. The housemaid isn't just a servant anymore. She's the one who cleaned up the mess for good. As the credits roll, the audience is left with the haunting realization that in House is this beautiful, the most dangerous thing isn't the person screaming, it's the person smiling.